Hi, I'm Jen Giffen from Shooks and Gift the Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Morning PLN, it's November 1, 2021, the beginning of November, and October and September is behind us. As I'm walking along this morning, I see fireworks strewn across the street, and it was Halloween yesterday, so it's a very busy time for our little ones and our young people as they get excited about going out in the neighborhood and seeing the neighbors and getting that free candy. It happened in my home. My middle daughter went out with her friend and took some little ones in our neighborhood out to go and enjoy the festivities. It was so much fun to watch and see, and we had lots of little kiddos come to our door to get candy at our door. All right, this morning as I'm walking, I got to hear a shout out from Andrea Samadi on Neuroscience Meets SEL podcast, episode 175, where she talks about the neuroscience of high performance, improving focus and clarity. Nope, it was improving, probably focus and clarity, and how we need to be mindful of how our calm state is so important to being able to perform. It's important that we as adults are able to regulate ourselves so that we can help others regulate. If we are in a state of unregulation or not in a state of calm, it is very difficult to work with others to bring them along and teach them how to do the same thing. You had two important questions at the end, Andrea. I really appreciate you sharing those. And I'm going to go back after I'm done my morning walk here on Fresh Air at 5. And yep, she said I'm out in the morning. It's dark out. There's a sliver of the moon left because, it's getting to be that new moon time of month. And I have to go back and write those questions down. So wherever you are and listening, make sure you take some time to write down those two questions that Andrea asked us, and how you're taking care of yourself physically, and what are you doing about maintaining clarity and focus. All right, have a fabulous day, all. Happy November, like I said. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. One more thing for November 1, 2021, and good morning to you, Jen and Tom, as I just listened to Shooks and Gift, Season 5, Episode 4, with guest co-host Tom Covington out of Southern California. And Tom, great to hear you talk with Jen. And Jen, glad you had Tom on to hear and talk about tech and all the fun things. I like the fake job reference at the very beginning. That is so funny. I can totally see you saying that to actually anybody. So Jen, that's really funny. That's a great opener and way to find out if people have a sense of humor. No? I think so. All right, so on this episode of Shooks and Gift, Jen and Tom talk about Canva and Noun Project and how Tom uses Canva, and I'm going to admit it here again that I am now a new Canva user. I've had an account forever since Tracy Polzer talked to us about it back at EdTech Team Vancouver Summit in 2015, and there was too much paid stuff that was in the way, that it was distracting to me, and I didn't use it in class. Therefore, I got into Adobe Spark, and I've stayed there with my students for a very long time. And then just recently, over the pandemic or so, the educational accounts have become available, and I signed up on the prompt from Chris Nessie, who says if you don't have one, go get your educational account. And I'm super impressed with the tools that Canva has for making things. So Tom, thank you very much for sharing that and how you use the Noun project to get any other icons that are not readily available. I got to work on that with my students because we do lots of graphics creations with Adobe Spark, and sometimes the nouns or the icons aren't available there in Adobe Spark Post either. All right, something else I heard you talk about was the Smart Queue or Super Queue, where you can put in your post for social media and coordinate the deployment of those. So I'm working with a conference, and Jen, I hope you had a great session with BCDLA the other day. That was great. I'd like to hear that, but sometime. But it helps with social media. Hang on a second. One more thing for November 1st, 2021, following on the heels of that last post that I made, talking about season 5, episode 4 of Shooks and Giff, the podcast where Jen Giffen has on guest co-host Tom Covington. So yes, I like the Noun project. I'm not super comfortable with the Noun project because it's an outside of Google space. I know there's lots of ways of using it. I have to dig into that a bit more. So many good things. And I like that card game, that game that has those pod prompts or whatever at the very end. I have to look that up and maybe get that app for my phone. All right, Tom and Jen, have a fabulous day and welcome to the week, everybody. Talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Oh, and Tom, I think our paths crossed on game night number 2 with Brian Briggs and Ryan O'Donnell back. I think it was in the spring of 2020 where we played some games. I think you were on and I think I was on. I was that Canadian from Moose Jaw that Ryan O'Donnell was always talking about. And so, yes, I'm not from Moose Jaw. I'm from out on the West Coast because Moose Jaw is far away from there. All right, just thought I'd put that out there. And Jen was on game show night number 1. So I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And we got to do things during the pandemic to keep it joyful. All right, that's all for now. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, November 2, 2021. Just started my Fresh Air at 5 this morning. Listened to George Couros talk about Mindset Mondays. And I don't know the title of it, but basically it's about finding the joy in what you do. And if you don't have that joy in what you do and you've put in the effort to do your best at this thing that you don't enjoy doing, then you got to maybe walk away. And that's hard advice, George, because this is like career stuff, and we need to be brave and we need to be honest with ourselves as we progress through this career and take charge of our learning and our own personal growth so that we can be the best person that we can be in the space that we are at. And, I was teaching. I was about probably 5 years in and getting into the kind of, I call it kind of a lull, but I was very competent at what I was doing at the moment in time in our online space, and didn't have a whole lot of joy. And it was like just going through the motions each day and supporting students. And I knew that I was doing good for students because I was there and it was my job. But then an opportunity came up for me to become a helping teacher at our district level, and I was like, whoa, that's a big shift. And so, I kind of blew it off right away because I'm like, no, I like my job. I like what I'm doing, but I wasn't passionate about it, but I didn't know that. And so my boss, my principal, he actually had recommended me for this new position, and he didn't want to lose me from the school, but he knew that I needed to do something to get some fire and to be better than I was, and that this was probably a growth area for me that I could step into. And it was incredible. And I worked there for 18 months, and then they didn't have any opportunity for me beyond that 18 months because it was a temporary contract. And all that to be said, I came back and I love what I do now because we've crafted a job for me, and that's important. All right, take a listen to Mindset Monday with George, episode 5. Peace out. Bye. One more thing for November 2, 2021, listening to Prairie Rose Possibilities, episode 1.2, as Tiffany Mullen and Rebecca Drew bring us a report out of 7-person school. I like that name. That's great. There's a meaning behind that, obviously. But they bring us a project report that they have started, which is the Academy of Fine Arts in their elementary school. There's about 275 students in this school, and they have a group of students that are part of the Academy of Fine Arts. Their school's known for athletics and other things like that are typical, but the fine arts is not one of those things that they're known for. And there's a group of students actually in every school that is interested in fine arts. We have to figure out how to reach them to keep them included. And it's great to hear how you have your time with those students. And the biggest thing that I heard from this project, this message, is that we are working with growth mindset to grow these students to be better than they have been. They may excel at certain area of fine arts, but to push them and to encourage them and invite them along a journey where they can grow and be more than they are, that growth mindset, that is super important. Cammie, your podcast you have going on here is a growth mindset, because you are now reporting on things that are beyond your district office and able to share on a platform that reaches people like me that would never sit down and read a blog. So, ladies, awesome growth mindset. Keep it going. Don't stop. And, it's about finding that passion for yourself and for your students. And it's important that we chase those passions. As George Koros out of Alberta also just said on Mindset Monday on the Innovators Mindset podcast, go take a look at it. Find your joy in what you're doing. And if not, walk away. All right, have a happy Tuesday. I have a bit more of my walk to go, but we'll see you later. Bye-bye. One last thing for November 2, 2021. I just finished up episode 60 of Overthrowing Education with Batsheva Frankel. She has on guest Zainab Belbeki out of Wisconsin, out of the Escuela Verte, I think. Maybe that's what it's called. School there, which is okay, you know what? That's a awesome sounding school about project-based learning and the holistic approach to project-based learning, and how students come into the school, and I can't recall what grade they enter. I'm guessing grade 9 to 12, but they step into the school and start from out of the gates, learning about the school, being a formational student in the school, an independent learner and an interdependent learner. I like that term, interdependent learner, because that speaks very much to the interdependence of one subject area on another, and that we can't do physics without math, and we can't do art without, science, because there's so much material that's involved there. We can't do all these different things, and PE class is not called PE class there. It's called wellness, and how they focus on wellness, and PE, physical education, is a part of that, and how the mind works and how the body rests and gets calm and all those kinds of things. So Zainab and Batsheva, thank you for bringing us this inside look into your school there in Wisconsin. And Qualia is the new deeper learning school at Arte Institute that sponsors Overthrowing Education. And I'm interested in hearing more about that, Batsheva, in the future, as you tell us more about the name change and what that name change has to do with actual learning. All right, so fantastic. Take a listen to this episode. As far as a project-based learner, someone that's learning about that and being able to push into that with students to do projects at my school, it's interesting to hear the whole picture of how that can happen in a school. And being a teacher and an advisor in that space would be very curious. Thanks so much. Happy Tuesday. Bye. Hey PLN, it's Wednesday, November 3, 2021, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning, and it's midweek, and I'm I was tired yesterday. You know, it's only Tuesday, teaching all day, and doing marking and other things at school. And I only teach 2 days a week, so that's, you know, boo-hoo, right? You say to me, but it's different in an online space and the space that I work, and I do a lot of marketing for online and all that stuff. So, okay, enough making excuses. This morning I listened to, check this out, episode 142, as Ryan and Brian bring us another jam-packed episode. And Ryan O'Donnell's probably going, no, I didn't have much to say. But you know, Ryan, we're making you relevant again. And I like what Brian said, that we're going to keep doing this podcast until you are relevant again. And it's interesting to hear you talking about movies and media and what our students listen to and how they take in content. It's interesting how I watch my own kids and my own home watch YouTube incessantly, and they have their TV shows on YouTube that they listen to, or their episodes. And I've even started to find myself tending to YouTube because there's some indie stuff that's really awesome. Fly fishing shows that I listen to that I can't get on TV, and there's good stuff on YouTube. So it's true. How does it change how we stay relevant with our kids? I think we need to get on YouTube too. I don't really care for it huge, the platform, as far as the way it's organized, but I'm getting around and getting used to it. And you talk about Canva for education, and I am getting into that as well, different than Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is accessible easily for my students, and I'm going to stay there for a while, at least this year, and we'll see how it goes in the future. But I like the access point for students with Adobe Spark and the things that we can do there. All right, that's about it, guys. Have a fabulous day. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Okay, a question. If I came to Spring Q, could we have a bonfire on the beach? Just wondering. Gentlemen, thinking about coming to Spring Q. I am right now. One more thing for November 3, 2021. I just listened to the very first episode of Prairie Rose Possibilities with Cami Canican, as she brings us episode 1.1, where she talks to Kirby Stensrud out of Jenner School in Alberta. And I'm listening to this podcast, and they're talking about outdoor education and teaching students skills that will grow them in their confidence as they move from their school into a bigger school. And you know what? It wasn't until the end of the episode that Kirby said that their school is a K-9 school. Man, that's a big spread. And they only have 30 students. Can you imagine what you could do with 30 students for 9 years? A lot of things. You could get to know those students. Relationships would be fantastic because they've been in your school for so very long. But then how do you program that? And that's the big challenge when you have a small group of students that you see from year to year. I see that in my school as I'm teaching them digital literacy. How do I teach? What projects do I use? And that I can do on a rotation so that my grade 6 to 8s don't get the same project they got in grade 6, in grade 8, or maybe they do. But making it relevant to today and now so that, yes, fantastic. Hunter education, I'd like to hear that because that's a relevant skill for students probably that live out in the rural. What about fishing? What about doing a fishing thing and teaching kids about how to read fishing regulations? Reading the regulations is really an important thing. It's a life skill if that's where their interest is. But yes, fantastic to hear, Kirby. And Cami, I have a question for you. Maybe you should do an episode where you just talk about the vision of Prairie Rose Possibilities and what drove you to bring a podcast like this, and what was your inspiration for sharing stories and projects from schools around your district? All right, I'd like to hear that, Cami. All right, thanks, Kirby. Have a fabulous day. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, Thursday, November 4, 2021, out for FreshAirAtFive this morning. Light drizzle, about 11 degrees Celsius, and it's all good. This morning, as I started my walk, I started listening to Just a Teacher podcast with Trav Golter out of Australia, and how he has on guest Dr. G. And Dr. G was on episode 39, and that was where we got the backstory of how Dr. G has got to where he is today. But in this episode, he digs into his practice of happiness and talking about happiness and being happy and doing happy. And so it's an interesting twist on a lot of things that we already are aware of. Mental health is a big concern among people, and he doesn't call it mental health because that seems to have a negative connotation, but he does say that we need to focus on happiness. He calls it happiness and not mental health because happiness is positive compared to a negative idea that our mental is not healthy. So as he gets going on this today, I heard him talk about happiness as a feeling, but also happiness as a verb and something that we do. He talks about feelings, thoughts, and actions. And so we have to acknowledge our feelings, but we don't let our feelings rule because our feelings are fleeting. They're not staying. What do we think about how we're feeling? And so then what are we doing about how we're feeling? And that was really important. I talked about goal setting and about setting goals, and we have our big goals, but how do you get into habits? And the habits are starting ridiculously small. RSR or SRS, starting ridiculously small. And then from there, step it up a little bit as time goes on to create habits, to be able to do habits. And so for me, walking every day was a thing that I wanted to do, and the consistency is the part that is the hard part with this. Thanks, Dr. G. Thanks, Trav. Take care. Appreciate it. Everybody take a listen to episode 40. Bye. One more thing for November 4, 2021. Listen to episode 98 of the Staff Room podcast. And Jay and Pav, you're getting close to 100. Looking forward to the 100th episode. Fired up. Excited about that. And that'll likely come out probably before Christmas. Yes? Probably. All right. Before winter break. Let me rephrase that. So sorry, I shouldn't have said Christmas. Yes. We are excited about that. That's great. In this episode 98, you talked about embedding identity work in your teaching and how it's important that we learn about self and we learn about identity. And you have done a great job, from what I can hear, about including a documentary and a real life situation about a Muslim person. To my understanding, her name is Bilquis, and I don't know all of her story, but you talked about how you had various media pieces and various ways of having information come to your students that they could learn about this person who is in Canada and teaching basketball in London nearby where you live, and just growing your understanding of this person and their identity and character, and then how real life situation happened that she's being denied permanent residency in Canada, and how your students became energized and fired up. And there's a connection there because of the work that you've done in bringing her story to light in your space. So identity work, identity and social justice and anti-racism frameworks, and how do we do that, and how do we talk about that in our space? We have to talk about it regularly and often, and not make it the only deal, but part of the fabric of our teaching and our learning. So thank you so much, Shay and Pav, for sharing. I am going to take a look at who Bilquis is and see if I can find those documentaries. I hope you have them in the show notes. People, take a listen to this episode because Pav and Che talk about an important topic of identity and how do we engage our students in their learning. All right, happy Thursday. Bye. One last thing for November 4, 2021. I just listened to episode 71 of Ignite EdTech podcast with Craig Kemp. And Craig had on guest Jessica. They were talking about their work with littles and the work that they do in bringing integration of technology into littles classrooms like kindergarten and their routines and things like that. I really appreciated hearing your story of how you have brought the technology, and you have across the continent, cross-continent engagement of your students with each other. through Flipgrid and just daily routines and things that you do to stay connected so that they can see that the world's a whole lot bigger than their classroom. Fantastic, awesome, and thank you for your thoughts. Really appreciate it. I'm going to take a look at the book that you have about Google in the classroom with Alice Keeler and for littles, and to see what we can do to get the kids going in the younger grades. I'm working with grade 3 to 5s already on the Chromebooks, but nothing yet with the little ones. So thanks so much for your ideas. Appreciate it very much. Thanks, Craig. And hey, Craig, I'll see you on episode 72, bro. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. One more thing for November 5, 2021. So I just finished my thoughts about edudivisiveness and how the administrators around me are so important. This is coming out of the Tom Schimmer Show on from this past week, episode 48. And so thanks, Tom, for bringing your rant, your thoughts about we got to stop putting each other down and work to being in the same system and making a difference in the same direction. All right, so that is the first part. The second part, you had an interview, the second part of an interview with Doug
Reeves.
I don't know of him, but I have just heard of him through your podcast, and great to hear him talk about a similar topic about, what are we doing that is not for the health and safety of our students? And if we had a building on fire compared to how we are caring for our kids in our classroom through our assessment practice, that we need to make some changes, because there's evidence that shows that if students aren't successful in school, it's not going to work out great for them in the future. And, what is the risk of making change? But the bigger question, and you brought this to the fore as well, Tom, is, what is the risk of not making change? And so we need to be change agents in our spaces and bring that. And yes, so that was really good. People, take a listen to episode 48 of the Tom Schimmer Show. You should take a listen and subscribe to his show. I got some ideas about how you can do that in a bit, because there's this 12 for 12 contest that I think I'm going to step into, Tom. So I think I'm going to take up the challenge and see if I can be one of those people that is in this contest. The third thing is, you talked about Assessment Corner is about making assessment relevant and making it relevant to our students, and how can they bring themselves to the assessment compared to things that they just need to know, because that's just the way it is. All right, challenging, awesome, fantastic, and I'm excited now to go to work and carry on being an educator, being a leader, and being a learner today. All right, talk to you. Bye. Happy Friday, PLN. It is Friday, November 5, 2021, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning. And you know what? It's feeling re-energized after a full week of a lot of things at school and teaching and looking back and reflecting. It has been a good week. A lot of great things have happened. Working with my students yesterday on how to take better photos and how to do some photo editing and image editing in Pixlr. And so that was a great experience. Something that's new to me, because I've avoided that in my own life. And but I'm stepping into it because I think it's relevant for my students to have some tools that this tool and other image editing tools, and understanding how to change the brightness, etc., of a photo so that they can communicate through their photography. All right, this morning as I listened to the Tom Schimmer podcast. Can't recall the episode number, but I will have it in the tweet, and it'll be on in the show notes for episode 44 of Fresh Air at 5. And Tom, thank you so much for this latest episode this week of November 1st, as you brought to us 3 important things that happened in the podcast. The first is about edudivisiveness, and you got on a rant, and I'm backing you, and I'm fully supporting how we need to stop saying that administrators and superintendents are not educators, and that they are out to get us and out to make our lives difficult, and to not be supportive of student learning. And I've got educators in administrative and leadership roles in my district that are fantastic educators. They are been teachers, they are still teachers, and I still go to them to get advice, and that saying blanket statements like that on Twitter is cowardly. You're out there in social media, you can say anything you want, but like that is just so cowardly. So I am fully behind you to support, putting that down and not saying that. I am so thankful for my administrators that have worked with me in the past. I'm thankful for the leaders that have, challenged me to be better than I am. And I really hope that people stop thinking of admin as the bad guys. Okay, coming up, got some more stuff. Hang on. One last thing for November 5, 2021, as I'm wrapping up my walks for this week. I listened to episode 1.15, I believe, of Prayer Rose Possibilities, and this is the one where Cami Canakins talks with Lynette Copeland out of 7-person schools about the work that she is doing with grade 7 to grade 9 students in the Outdoor Bound program, and how 7 persons school has partnered with Outward Bound Canada to take kids out into the wilds and to grow their leadership understanding, their empathy understanding, social emotional learning, and just to watch them out in nature be students that are leaders and cooperators and partners on hikes and the things that they can do and they need to do as they're out hiking in the wild. So fantastic, Lynette, to hear. I grew up in Alberta, in Calgary, and I started hiking in the Kananaskis only after I was in university. And my dad wanted me to come out with him, but I never made it because I was a city kid and I was scared of being outside at that time. But now that has all changed. And I get outside early in the morning now for my walks. I love the nature. I go fishing. I go hiking. I've even been out hunting. And so, yes, it's so important to get kids outside, away from the city and away from town and school, to see them enjoy and learn and grow themselves. All right, fantastic. Great. Thank you, Cami, for bringing Lynette Copeland on to Prayer Rose Possibilities. Look forward to hearing more about your project in the future. Okay, bye.
My one word for 2021 is appreciate. I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.